Let's go ahead and quickly build a biz card application here. So again, we're going to be using the same project. You can use a different project if you wish to do so, but I like to put everything together at least so that everything is in one place for educational purposes. So inside of our home.dart, remember this is actually inside of our UI. We created this earlier. I'm going to create another class here and call class. Call this, actually, I can say stateless because that's what we need. And I'm going to call this biz card like this. Okay, very simplistic approach indeed. And you can see you can also fold all of your code. That way things are a little bit less chaotic. So you have more space. So you can see there's that class we've been working on and you can fold it that way. So as usual, we're going to return a scaffold and I'm going to add an app bar. So app bar, give it a title, text that will say biz card. For the body, a container, that way we have more control. And I'm going to give it an alignment. I'm going to just use the alignment class and I want this to be center. And because we're inside of our container, we have access to our child. In this case here, I'm going to use a stack because I want to be able to stack other widgets on top of each other so that I have more control on how things look. I'm going to also use alignment here. I'm going to say alignment center as well as such. And of course, we inside of a stack, it allows us to have children. Okay. Now for our children here, I'm going to just put a text right now that would say something like hello. It's always the same anyway. So we can run. And notice that if we run this, we are going to get what we had before. In fact, because as you see, this biz card, we're not calling in our main. If you notice here, and our main is still calling the scaffold example. So let's go ahead and say biz card. There we go, like that. I'm gonna save this. While this is still running, it's probably gonna pick up the previous, what we had previously. No problem, we'll have to rerun again probably. Yes, as we predicted, this is not what we want. Let's just run it again so that it installs and picks up the biz card instead of what we had previously. And voila, it says biz card, hello, and very nice. And if we want this to be to the left, we can leave as it is, or if we want to make this center title true, you know how to do that by now. If you don't remember, it's easy. We can come down here and say center title. We can say true or false. Okay, either way, if you don't put anything, you'll assume it's false. Very good. So we have our very generic application here. We should be able to get to this point, but we are interested in creating something a little bit more elaborate. Now we have our hello here. This is not what we want for obvious reasons. What we actually want here is we want to add a card. So I'm going to actually put inside of a function, I'm going to say get card as such. So we haven't created our get card here. So we're going to click here and we want actually a method because it's going to be inside of our class. So click there. And you notice now it is inside of our biz card class. Very good. Now, what is that we're going to be doing here? Well, our get card here is actually going to return a container. So I'm going to say container as such. The moment you do that, you notice it's going to say, well, something is not right because it expects to return a container because this is the type of this method. So we have to do return and going to be returning a container. Now in our container, this is where we're going to structure our business card. Add width 350 and height is about 200 as such. Next, we're going to add a decoration. So I'm going to say decoration, a box decoration. So I'm going to say box. There's a decoration there and we can pass, of course, a lot of different properties. The first one should be color. I'm going to say colors. And I'm going to use pink accent. It seems to be the color that I go to usually. And next, we're going to go and add border radius. I'm going to say border radius, and I want to be circular 4.5. Okay, let's finalize that just like this. Let's save this and see what's going to happen. And once you do that, you save, you can see now we have this nice card that was created. All of that was created because remember we passing in a container, actually we're returning a container. We specified width and height and we decorated our container with the color and added the border radius. So the bigger this number, obviously, the more circular our edges will become, right? So if I say 14, for instance, save, you can see the edges are more circular. In fact, I kind of like that actually. Now we want to add a few text inside of our box here, inside of our card. Inside of our container here, we still have the capability of adding a child. And in this child here, I'm going to add a column as such. And in column, I'm going to have a few properties as well. First of all, I'm going to make sure that the main axis alignment is going to be center. Now, when it's column, the main axis is going to be vertical. When we talk about rows, then it's going to be horizontal. So when we say that main axis alignment, and we say main axis as such to be centered, because that means we want this column to vertically to be in the middle. Now, because we're inside of our column here, we can also have our children. This is where we can pass a text to whatever else we need. In this case, we're going to pass a text, a few texts actually. And this first one is just going to say my name. I'm going to pass another one that would say something like this. Okay, there we go. Give a save, and you can see now we have the text showing in middle. Let's make this perhaps a little bit bigger. Now, once I do that, notice that I also lose a little bit of the bottom here. You can't quite see, but at least you can see that I want you to focus here. The next thing I want to be able to do is to put something circular that will contain an image of some sort at the top there. Now, because we're inside of a stack, we can still do that. Because remember, this get card is actually being called inside of our container, which actually has a child of stack. Okay, so everything can be stacked and we can arrange as we wish. So I'm going to do the same thing as we did here and create another method that will return a container. But before I do that, there's something else we need to do here. I would like to add some more information at the bottom here, like a Twitter account or something. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back down here. Now, because I want to make sure that I have one piece to the left and the other one to the right, I'll have to have a row because I want to be able to put, for instance, an icon to the left and then to right the actual text. Does it make sense? So I can do that by saying row. And for my row, I'm going to say main axis alignment. In this case, I'm also going to make it center. Okay, you can use others such as spaced, around or evenly and so forth. But we would just want center to simplify our lives. And for children here, and don't forget to put a comma there to separate our items in our list. So for our children, first of all, I'm just going to add an icon here. And I'm going to find, say, user. I'm going to say person. Let's find person outline like this. That works. Next, I'm going to add a simple text that would say something, maybe T for Twitter or something, and then build apps with me, something like that. Okay, you can put whatever you want. If you save this, we should be able to see this is what I mean. You can see now we added this icon, and because it is in a row, then they are laid out that way. Okay, so it's looking really good so far. And next, what we're going to do, we're going to add the image, as I mentioned before, in a circular kind of circle avatar, as it's called. All right, so to do that, I'm going to separate my code again as a good citizen. I'm going to come up here. First of all, I can go ahead and say get avatar as such. And if you click here, we can create a method. There we go. Method are inside of a class. This is also going to return a container as such, which means we have to say return. And what we want to do, I'm going to say width. I want this to be about 100. And the height is also going to be 100. Now, I could have gone and added a child, but I don't want that because I just want to actually decorate our container and then pass an image in that container. We could have done that by adding a child, but I think this is probably better the way we're going to do here. So I'm going to say decoration because I want to decorate our container. Say box decoration. It should be used to this by now. And I'm going to say color. Give it a colors. I'm going to just make it white. And then I'm going to add border radius. I'm going to use the border radius. Now, there's different ways to get border radius. In this case, I'm going to use the other way because I want the radius to be around the entire item, which means I want it to be circular all around. So I'm going to use the border radius all, which means I have to pass a radius object here, right? I'm going to say radius. In this case, it's going to be radius circular object. I'm going to be passing, and I want to pass 50.0. And then what I can do, I can actually pass the border here. So the border of our item. So I'm going to say border as such. I'm going to say all. And then here I'm going to pass color. And the colors, I'm going to say colors and maybe red accent. That would work. And the other property, I'm going to say the width of this border. So this is the outline of our circle. I want to make it just 1.2. So not too much. Next, you can see we can add also an image or box, shadow, gradients, and all sort of things. We're interested in adding an image. Now, in this case here, the image we need to pass here has to be a different kind of image, because we're inside of a box decoration, we have to pass the decoration image. Even tells us right away. In this case here, we're actually going to go and get an image from somewhere on the web. So if you go to this address pixum.photos, it's a really nice website where you can actually get links to random images on the web. Okay, so I usually like to use this one here because it's easy. In fact, if you go here and refresh, notice each time a new image is being used. I guess it's nice for creating applications that you're testing things out and go from there. So that's what we're going to be using, and easy to use as it says here. We just get this link and we pass it all in, and we can change all these parameters as well if we want bigger or smaller images. And it says here you'll get a random image. So there we go. That's what we're going to be using. So here I'm going to have to pass a network object, so network image object. So this actually is there for us. We can just use and pass the URL, and we don't have to do anything else. That's very handy. And I'm going to pass the URL here. So let's go grab this URL here. I'm going to copy this, paste it all in there, and I'm going to actually want this to be about 300 by 300 as such. Okay, and I can make it the fit to be box fit cover like this to cover the entire area, and save. Okay. If we go back down here, you can see there is our image. It's right in the middle there. Now, every time you would run this app, this will change, obviously, okay, because it's random. It goes and picks the random image. Very good. But you notice it's down here in the middle, and I want this to be to the top there. What do we need to do, actually, because all of this is inside of a stack? Let's go back to our code where we define our stack. I said I mistakenly say this to be center. Actually, what I want this to be top center as such. If you save that, you can see right away this is a little bit to the top. But I want this to be all the way to the top. That's when we start moving things around and get things to work for us. Going to our get card, this is where we actually have our children and everything. So the card in itself, so whatever it's inside here. We can change a few things by using the margins, because we want to add margins around everything. I can say margin as such. And for margin, I'm going to say edge insets. But now you can see there's a lot of different options or flavors for edge insets here. We have from left to right bottom, symmetric, and so many others. We want the insets all because we wanted the padding to be around the entire item or the entire view, or in this case, container. So I'm going to give a bigger padding. So let's start by smaller padding like this. See what's going to happen. Okay, it's small. You can see it went a little bit up, right? Because the padding that we added, it wasn't around, it was smaller, but the bigger we add, the bigger we get. Okay, so 50, notice it goes up. Okay, so you can see the difference there. So this is quite nice. If you want this to be a little bit more higher, you can, of course, continue. Actually, it's probably going to be too much. And you can see now we have a problem because the padding, the insets, it's getting smaller and smaller, and it gets to the point where this is not going to work for us. Okay, very good. So there is a limit. So about 50, that's what we need, and it gives us this very nice card. Obviously, you can do all sort of things with our text here, make it a little bit beautiful. So we can come down here for our text. Let's add style, text style. And I want font size to be perhaps 20, not 0, like this, or not 9. Save, you can say it's bigger, and I can also, I can add, let's say, font weight. You can say I want this to be italic. That's totally fine. Oh, I think I have a problem. Font style. That's for font weight. My apologies. Different types. Font weight. I want to say bold. And there we go. You can see maybe bolder than this. Let's see about this. So you can see the difference because it seems like that was the, all right, much better. And if we want to change color, we can say colors, white. That sounds to be good. And voila, you can see it looks really good. So go ahead and change to your liking. At least I want to go through a semi-complex, not that complex, little user interface so you can see how things are constructed. All right, very good. So what I want you to do as an exercise, go ahead and make this even better. Okay, maybe try to move this to the left or to the right, or maybe just move it inside of our box here or our card and move this everything else to the bottom a little bit. So play around with this and see what you can do. Another thing you can do, you can actually change the overall look of the whole application. Meaning, if we go to our base card here in our scaffold, here I can come and say color or background color. I can actually change the color of the entire body. So I can say colors dot red accent just to see, and you can see the entire application has changed, right? Probably not the best design choice, but you get the idea. Okay, so there's something to keep in mind. Voila, and there you have it.